My name is Timothy and this is XPR Garage. And we are back on the 71 Challenger. Last time I left, I had made this piece, formed it, and I had painted the piece of the car. Got it fitting pretty good. It's a little bit lower, but it's not actually set in it. I'm probably going to wait to do this piece until I get to do this patching on the inside. I'm not quite ready to start on that yet. So I'm just going to leave this here. And I'm going to go ahead and start working my way up and start doing this roof section. I'm going to do this section here. Starts right around here out to get into some of this lead. And then over to about here. I may just go ahead and do one giant piece here. I'll see how I go, but I'm going to start off with this as I am doing a small piece. And if I decide I want to go to a bigger piece, I'll just do it right next to it. No big deal. You do have to be a little bit more careful when welding this roof because this is a big flat piece of sheet metal that is curved to it. But that's when you can start warping metal, and I want to try to keep from doing that as much as possible. But I'm going to go ahead and cut out my marks where I need to cut out so that way I make it consistent, at least for me to build another piece for. And I'm going to get started on that. Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how and what I'm thinking in my head whenever I'm working on a patch like this. So this is what I am left with. I wire brushed it a while ago, and I got it down to where what's good and what's bad. So what I'm looking at here is, I know from the factory that this overhangs just a little bit. This piece is rotted out, the roof skin overlaps the inner roof structure. And it actually overlaps this a little bit on the end, so this will stick out. This is also where the window sits, so where the window glues in. So you want this pretty well decent. The best way would have a window, but I know this is pretty much all flush. So as long as I'm following this, I should be okay with the window. That way you have a good tight seal. So when I'm looking at this patch, I know that this channel piece is rotted out. So I know I'm going to have to do that 90-degree bend. But I will leave some of this what's good as a reference. So from here down to here. And I know I got to build that bend up, which this corner's gone, so I'll have to kind of fabricate that. And I do believe this corner sticks out not evenly with this one. I am pretty sure, yeah. So I'll walk over to the other side. You can use the other side of the car if it's still there as kind of a reference point too. So this one has a little bit left of it. As you can see, the two pieces that flush up together on that bend are not completely butted to each other. There's a little gap that starts separating. So when I get ready to do this side, I will know that this kind of starts splitting away. It's going to go sharper than here. So it's going to start going away from this curve, which goes up into here. Another thing is you have this line right here where the roof stops. So I'm following that. Where some of this gets eaten away, but if you look closely, there's some bits that have the curve there and start bending down. So I know that that's where my curve is going to be. I'm going to leave as much of this curve as possible, maybe cut this little ear off, but still leave it to where I know where that bend is there. And that's my reference point for a bend to put back in the car. See, it's like right here. I know that's my bend, and then all this is chewed out. So I'll make a flowing bend that is going to line up to this point here because that's still my bend. from what's left of the car. So all this is chewed out, and I'll have to re-put that back in. But that's what I use as a reference point on trying to custom fab basically pieces from scratch and building it. So that's what I do before I even fake before I cut the patch out, so that way I know. I usually will take pictures or maybe a video of how I do it beforehand. So that way I got another reference point. If you do have maybe lucky enough to have another car, so an E-body, a CUDA and Challenger should be the same. I do have a CUDA. The window channel, especially in this region, is good, so I can use that as a kind of a reference. I luckily enough do have another Challenger to look at. I don't know how good or bad it is, but that stuff I can use as reference points. So you can use certain cars that are not technically the same car, but they're the same piece as used as reference point, and sometimes you can get some good pictures and stuff like that. But that's how I kind of figured out from knowing nothing but what I have. And luckily enough, I have just enough to figure it out. Alright. Well, I'm going to get to cutting some of this out and cleaning up some of this flake where it's pinch welded on. And getting it cut out to at least up into here, because I know that's decently solid. But I figure I'll probably be cutting this whole piece out eventually in one piece. But I like to do it a section at a time because I know this is a good solid enough point to work off of. It does split my patch up, but it helps me keep everything good and straight. Alright, well, I'm going to get to cutting this out and getting it all smoothed out. And then I'll probably go ahead and primer it. That way I know it's drying. And maybe be able to get in there and clean out some of that underneath there too. Because since I have it cut open, it'd be the best time to put some sort of paint in it. Yeah, I know there's that copper weld. Know where I have carries it, and me ordering it, I don't want to wait on order. This paint that I use works for what I've seen, so I use it, and I can actually rev till we get it. If I have to have it, I can go to a store and get it. I always want to wear safety glasses. I don't know how many times I've gotten lead on my eyes. I got them with it with safety glasses, but it was far less as bad as it was with me not having the safety glasses. Trust me, it's not fun. So I know this is spot welded in here, so I like to cut a little bit above it, and then I take a hammer and chisel and usually break this off without hurting or bending this. And then I can usually kind of come up here and grind that off. I'm going to take this little tab off here so I got a little bit more room in here, but I'm not cutting it all the way into the roof because I know that's my bin and I want to keep that as a reference. And I'm going to come along about halfway on this piece. And this piece is going to be fun because my wheel won't fit in here. Figure out how to cut that in there. Might have to just cut through it a little bit. I got that broke loose. Give me a hammer and chisel. Found this chisel in an antique store, and I'm pretty sure it's only for wood, but it works for sheet metal. And it is usually a nice and clean cut. that's the piece that you don't want. I'm not really tapping on it too hard. Got a big hammer, but I'm just letting the hammer work. Not really forcing it. Just letting it eat into it. I'm going to try to use a smaller cutting disc because I can get into a tighter area. That little tip is I usually, once my cutting discs get down to so small, I usually will take them off and use them for the tighter areas. That's a way to get a smaller disc. So usually when they get about, I don't know, down to an inch, inch and a half, sometimes I'll just take them off and keep them. Because the wheel I can only get last time was here and here, and I started eating into it. Which I don't want to do a whole lot of, but if I have to, I can always weld it back up. But with the smaller wheel, I should be able to get in there a little bit tighter without eating into it as bad. Did get into the roof a little bit, but not too bad. I just have to be a little bit careful not pushing that ridge up. So what I'm actually going to do is take this and I'm going to cut right in here. Give me a little piece of screwdriver. Pop that out. And moving a little bit. Now I can get in there with the chisel and not have to worry about it pushing it up too much. Trying to get it all the lid, but I want to get it where I know I got good metal underneath. Let's see here. Pretty good. Alright, I think I'm just going to go ahead and kind of cut this down to here. Right under here. Might leave a little section of this here. I'm going to go ahead and cut most of this out. There is a vinyl top peg here, or no, my bad, not a vinyl top peg. On these, it is a the windshield molding clip peg. I'm gonna put me a little thing right there. That way I know where that is. Put me a little sign there for a peg. Little spot weld pegs. I need to get me a set of them. That way when I get ready. But that way I got it marked on where that's going to be, because that's going to get cut out. I want to keep this as more of a roof, to keep the roof the same height here. So that kind of keeps me clamped in a certain way when I get ready to actually do it and done prepping everything for the piece. I'll get ready and cut it out. Alright, so I got this bent at a 90. I labeled this side as being with the car, and it's pretty much straight edge. And this is about where my curve's going to start. So, one thing I'm going to do, got this piece of scrap metal. I'm going to take it and bend it by hand. Right on this curve. That's going to give me a gist about how much of a bend of curve I need. So it's going to be somewhere along the lines of that. And that way, when I put this piece in the shrinker stretcher, I can get that curve out of it. Alright, so I got as much as I could with my shrinker and stretcher, as in this bend. It works, but once you start doing a big flange like that, it starts slipping, and that's what my problem is. The teeth are coming down, and when they pull together, it slips. But it is close. But I guess I'm going to have to do it the old way. So the old way that I did, I would take a piece of metal I need, and I would bend it where I would have to cut it. So I'm going to cut a couple pieces in it. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and cut, and cut all of them. And that'll give me just enough room that I can take it and just bend it. So that's pretty much close. I'll have to go back in here and weld all these up. Guess you guys couldn't see that. But it's pretty real close. Now the old way was me doing that everywhere. So for example, the next bend I gotta do is, so I got this one pretty well close enough here. Well, as you can see, when I do it like that, it sticks up. So I need to do another bend where this will bend down. So I put the shrinker stretcher in and bow it a little bit like that, which I think I can do. So this is going to go on the stretcher. It's going to widen this up and make this bow like that. But I'll do it along the way, so that way it contours the top of the roof like this. So it kind of has that arch type thing. So I'm going to get started on that. Alright, so it's getting late. Running into problems with my shrinker and stretcher. There's a possibility I might have broke my shrinker. I need to double check that. I'll eventually go through it and just clean it or something. Stretcher's not working very well, as you tell. Went through it a couple times. It's still pretty much straight. I do remember there was a problem whenever I first had got it and I was testing pieces. And I forgot, this don't like to do wide pieces. And honestly, this is too wide. So it's not really stretching it like it should. This is probably the absolute max that you can do it with. So what I'm going to do is, since this has a bunch of play, I'm going to cut about that much off. And that should allow this stretcher to work more properly. But that's excess anyways. I just like leaving my pieces a little bit long. That way I don't run into being too short. Alright, so I'm back on this. I'm going to go ahead and cut this down a little bit because I have a bunch of excess, and maybe then my shrinker and stretcher will work easier with this. So I'm going to mark how much I can get rid of. Still like to give it just a hair. Alright, so I'm going to get that cut off, and maybe it'll be easier on my shrinker and stretcher to bend this properly. Alright, so I got this piece pretty much primered in. I got this edge pretty much cut back just enough to be inside this other piece right here, which is what I want. And I got this piece spot welded where my bins are going to be. I'll get finished welded up when it's on the car. But I got it in there fitting pretty good. So I get lined up just like that. Welded in the bottom. And then I'll probably cut about a 1/2 inch strip all the way. I had put the pieces of tape to kind of figure out a body line and a straight edge. And then I got this one on there to measure it. I did 1 inch up. And then I figured out, well, I don't really want to cut 1 inch all the way up here. So I went down to about a 1/2. So I'm going to cut this out whenever I get ready in like section of it for repairing this. And it'll get butt welded to the piece that I have. So I did leave this just a hair long, which is fine. I weld that corner in real good whenever I cut it down and grind it to smooth down to this, and I'll cut this piece. And that will get that done. And then my corner will be the weld, and I'll just take a grinder and just shape the weld to my corner. So I'll make sure it does a pretty decent little bead. Alright, well I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I got the piece plug welded in and got it pretty well grinded smooth, and it's starting to look redone. This piece here could use a little bit of shaping, but that's no big deal. But I can do that while it's in there. And plus, this part right here is shaped pretty well. It's just this kind of straightened out, and whenever I was doing this, so I have to get that metal kind of stretched out. But other than that, lining up pretty good. It's not the same exactly because this piece is bent in just a little bit, and it's got a little wavy. That, and there is some, I guess, like window material, silicone or something there. But it is pretty much in line with it. And then this spot's going to have a little bit of a gap here. That's because I had cut that corner piece out, so that way this would fit where the metal would have been. And then I have it a little bit raised up here. So, it's good. I'm probably gonna go ahead and cut the strip out I need here. I don't think I'm gonna go all the way down, but I might. But I'm going to follow this line, the inner line here. And that's probably the piece I'm gonna cut out. But before I do that, now I'm going to grind this down where it needs to be, this little lip. Alright, well I'm going to finish that up. Alright, so after I got this thing grinded smooth to the roof, I kind of changed my mind. I think I'm just going to weld this gap up and be done with it. Because honestly, this metal's not too bad. Except for this little spot here. It's a little bit bigger than what I like. But I think it'll be okay. I just have to be very, very careful and do this slowly. But this is kind of a view. Yeah, the gap's not even because I cut it and what's rotted out too. So it kind of looks off, but this is where you tell when stuff gets in line. Now, let me move this light out of the way. So when you look at it, if I get the camera in focus, there we go. Pretty darn good. Nice and flowy. No sharp ridges or nothing. Probably a little bit better than factory. But I think I'm just gonna slowly spot weld this up. Make sure I don't overheat the roof and start warping it. But that's the way I think I'm gonna do this piece. This piece up here I may just go ahead and cut out anyways, because of the piece behind this anyways, which isn't that big of a deal, and plus it's more of a flatter area. But this piece I think I'm just gonna weld this up. I think it'll be fine. If anything, I may just cut this little corner out or add a piece here, which I do have a strip, and just do it that way. Cut me out a little corner piece or something. I don't know, but I am going to go ahead and start welding this up and probably tack this, just so that way it stays in place. Alright, well I'm going to get started on that. Alright, so I got this piece all welded up and grounded down. And I found out that I did not record the entire thing. This probably took me about 45 minutes, so I was time-lapsing and completely forgot to hit the play button. Well, maybe I'll learn that lesson and not do it again. But, let me get this air. There we go. I did take a little bit of sandpaper, just to kind of shape it just a little bit better. This curve is a little bit still too sharp, but I'm fine with that. And it's a little bit pulled out here. A little bump. I can fix that later, but that's no big deal. And it's not the smoothest on this ridge, but I don't want to go into it until I get the whole thing, and then I can like blend it all together and you would not even know. But for welding and no Bondo whatsoever, or filler of any kind, this ain't bad. The other thing, this metal roof, I can feel a little bit of warpage, but hardly any at all. What I will do, just to kind of show you, I will take some paint that I got, just spray over it and take this emery cloth and just kind of go over it and show how well this, pretty well how flat this is and smooth. Sorry about not videoing that. Trust me, I really was wanting for it. But things happen, and that just happened. Didn't happen to go the way that I really wanted it to, but this turned out great. Alright, well I'll show you guys what it looks like when it's have like a guide code over it, just to kind of show you how well that this turned out. Alright, so I got it pretty well sanded down with that guide coat. So basically all the little black specks that you can see here, one that's pits, and like here, that's a little bit of low spots. You can see all the little holes and stuff for the weld, which I can go back and weld that, but honestly that's so small. Probably weld that one, weld these up eventually because they are, I think, holes. So it probably wouldn't hurt to actually weld them. But that's more of a finish. But that piece is pretty much done. Alright. Well, hopefully, maybe this weekend I'd like to be able to complete the rest of this window. And get it all done. That's my plan for this weekend. Maybe try to mess with the in here and get that all done. That would be nice, but at least get the window done. Alright. Well, I will probably end the video here and wait until the part 3. Thank you for watching.